Blessings, good evening on a warm Tuesday night. So in following our usual pattern, we have some questions. Maybe because of the sudden nature of the lockdown, there's only 3 questions tonight, but that's okay. Sometimes we can answer our own questions in the Dhamma practice by just keep practicing, watching, learning from our own experience. And the questions that came up before get answered all by themselves. Our teacher Ajahn Chah used to say when he was a junior monk, new practitioner, he didn't ask that many questions. He tended to just listen to teachers, see what they had to say, and then contemplate. So that's sometimes a valid way of practice as well. Nevertheless, we have some questions. So, the first one, how do I practice mindfulness when I keep forgetting myself? Well, it's because we keep forgetting ourselves that we practice mindfulness. The word sati means recollection, keeping in mind, very close to just remembering. So the opposite of forgetting. And the Buddha said it's a Dhamma, a virtue that has upakara, means it's beneficial, always beneficial, helpful to us to have more sati. You can't really have too much sati. Too little sati is, too little mindfulness is our problem, as you've pointed out. We forget ourselves, so we have to practice. It's very much a part of our regular practice as Buddhists. We just chanted the Noble Eightfold Path, so one section of that, Samma Sati, gives you an indication on how to practice. The Buddha taught the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Mindfulness directed to the body. So when you have a cough, you're mindful of the tickle in your throat. And mindful of posture, mindful of activities you're doing with your body, and then mindful of the nature of the body, how it's made up of the 4 elements, earth, air, fire, water. The body has its different component parts. We have that chant, the 32 parts of the body, and so on. We have many aspects to mindfulness of the body, and then mindfulness of feeling, pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, neither pleasant nor unpleasant feeling. Mindfulness of the mind, and then mindfulness of Dhamma, or objects of mind, particularly understanding and being mindful of those things which cloud the mind, this brings suffering, the 5 hindrances and the mental defilements. And then mindful of the factors that lead out of suffering, say like the mindful of the 4 Noble Truths, mindful of the 7 factors of enlightenment, and so on. So what you can see from this is we always have something that we can be mindful of, an object, an activity, a posture, a thought. We're always mindful of something, and that's how we train, practicing, becoming more mindful. And in conjunction with mindfulness, we practice clear comprehension, sampajanya. So mindful and clearly comprehending the breath, or mindful, clearly comprehending our speech, what we're saying. Mindful and clearly comprehending the activity of driving a car. You'll notice when you drive a car, you're naturally more mindful perhaps than some other activities, because there's more at stake. There's danger involved. If you're careless and heedless when you drive a car, you could kill yourself or someone else. So you notice certain activities bring up more mindfulness then because of danger or the risks, and consequences of not being mindful are greater. So then we try harder to be mindful of that object or that activity. I remember when I first came to Australia with Luang Por Anand in 1998. A long time ago now, we flew Qantas from Bangkok to Sydney, and as we flew over the centre of Australia, the captain very kindly invited us into the cockpit of a jumbo jet. I don't think that happens these days, but in those days they were still relaxed enough they would do that, so that we could see the view of Ayers Rock and the centre of Australia, and also have a chat about meditation. And the main subject of the conversation was mindfulness. And the pilot and co-pilot were talking about their training to be pilots. And they train in many things, and they gain knowledge and skills, but they also have to learn how to pay attention, because a long international flight requires many hours sitting behind the controls, and there's also the unpredictable nature of weather systems and the possibility of mechanical fault and so on. So they always have to be vigilant, mindful, attentive to their job, because there's a lot of people under their responsibility. So a job like that brings up mindfulness quite naturally in that role, in that position. They were saying one of the biggest obstacles to mindfulness is, when you're in a mood, if you have disharmony amongst the crew members, or you're not taking your job seriously, you're frivolous, or of course if you were, say, to drink alcohol, that's a real taboo for a pilot on duty, because it's too dangerous to be flying a plane while drunk. So they're very aware of what takes away mindfulness in that situation. And really that applies to every aspect of our life. One of the important factors for the arising of mindfulness, the Buddha said, is hearing the Dhamma. And that means spending time with Kalyana Mitta, people who practice the Dhamma and hopefully are practicing mindfulness. When you stay in Buddhist retreat centers or Buddhist monasteries with fellow practitioners, it tends to make you more mindful. Even when you're at home, listening to the Dhamma, maybe on this very occasion, hearing the Dhamma can make you more mindful. Pay attention to yourself, your body, your mind in the present moment. Brings up a sense of urgency to the practice when we hear the Dhamma or spend time with Kalyana Mitta, or sometimes just reflecting on certain topics makes us more mindful. Obviously we're not in life-threatening, risky situations every day, all of the time, but the Buddha said if you want to bring up mindfulness, well, recollect death, the uncertainty of life, the fact that you don't know how long you've got to live. You could die at any moment from a heart attack or a stroke, or you could be hit by a falling meteorite. You could cross the road and hit by a car. If you're in the forest like us, you could be bitten by a poisonous snake and die of that. There's always the possibility for death every day of our life from different reasons. And just recollecting that makes you much more mindful, pay attention to your mind, what you're doing. Or another way it's just asking yourself. Ajahn Chah used to say, ask yourself constantly, what am I doing right now? And then answer while I am sitting, listening to a Dhamma talk, or I am eating my food, or I'm doing this, I'm doing that. You ask yourself and then you answer yourself, so you're bringing your attention back to the present moment. If you're practicing meditation, sitting meditation or walking meditation, then you have a meditation object which you use to develop mindfulness. So we practice, for example, mindfulness of breathing. We put our attention on the in-breath and out-breath to train in mindfulness, not forgetting the breath, not losing awareness of the breath. But of course, as you do that, you will forget the breath and your mind wanders away. So it's about persistent effort, bringing the mind to the breath, keeping it there, working with the forgetfulness of the mind in a very direct way when you're meditating. Similarly, when you're walking meditation, keeping your mind on the feeling of the feet touching the ground, or with the meditation word buddho, for example. So you use meditation sessions to improve the level of mindfulness, and it's about bringing up regular effort and persistent effort as you do that, really trying to let go of distraction. Another thing you'll notice that often brings mindfulness up when we're practicing is pain. Once you have pain in your experience, you notice it. If you're a meditator, you'll notice pain in your leg, pain in your back, or a painful memory. That tends to bring your mind to the present moment. But if mindfulness is weak, then you might get caught into a train of negative thought based on that painful experience. And you have to work hard not to give in to those thoughts, and they often lead on to seeking something else. So your mind seeks something to distract itself from the pain. But still, painful, unpleasant experiences can have that effect on us. They're like a shock or a jolt, and bring our attention to the present moment. And so they can, when they happen, bring the mind back to the present moment, bring up mindfulness. So if you go to the doctor and you get news that you have something wrong with your body that's quite serious, or maybe a serious illness has emerged, it makes you mindful, it makes you stop and think, oh, is this going to kill me? What's going to happen next? How long have I got? And so on. So many people have the experience when they're diagnosed with an illness. Fear and worry makes them very mindful, and often that's the time when they put effort into their meditation practice and listening to Dhamma. And then when they recover, they relax again and give up the meditation. The mindfulness doesn't seem important then. But a wise person is constantly practicing to develop mindfulness. They're heedful. Apamada, this quality, is very close to mindfulness. It's not exactly the same, but it means heedfulness, careful, seeing and knowing what's important in your life, and developing mindfulness is something that's important. So if you give it that importance, then you'll put effort into developing more and you'll forget yourself less. Another question. My mother is dying. How can I help her at this time? Well, it's a good question. It probably applies to many of us sooner or later, because as we live in the world, we get older, and generally our parents get older quicker, and they are older than us, so generally they're the ones who face the end of their life before us. Not always, but generally that's the case. So it's worth thinking about, isn't it? Even if your parents are still healthy, how will you help them when they get sick or facing their death? And if they are facing death now, Well, there's many things we can do to help them. Probably number one priority is just medical attention and care, physical care for their condition, and whatever that assistance we can provide to make them more comfortable and get them the treatment they need. That would be number one priority. Then there's the mind. So if your parent, your mother has faith in the Buddha's teaching and have already practiced somewhat in their life, that can be an advantage, and you can assist your mother in her Dhamma practice at this difficult time. So assist in a practical way, provide means for her to hear the Dhamma. Even if she's bedridden and very weak, you can still make it possible for her to hear the Dhamma. You can read a Dhamma book to her. You can arrange a listening device, or even live Dhamma. Invite a teacher to visit, or give a phone call or a video call to your mother with a Dhamma teacher to hear Dhamma. And you can practice with her. You're healthy, and one of the things that will help you as well, if you're feeling stressed, worried about your parent, well, practice some meditation. And maybe sit together with your mother and meditate if it's still possible. If she's strong enough, even lying in a bed, you can practice some breathing meditation or loving kindness meditation. And the same goes for chanting. We can chant with our mother. Not just play the sound of chanting, but actually chant with her, give her a support, and do it as a little practice chant, a chant that she may have done before and knows. And then hearing the Dhamma, you can have Dhamma conversations. You can talk to your mother about the good things she's done in her life to brighten her mind, bring up a good feeling, good memories. You can remind her to do more meditation, to practice mindfulness and so on, to be patient with the difficulties she's facing. You can express your love and support for her so that she feels that, she has no doubts about that. You can ask forgiveness from your mother for any of your own shortcomings or previous arguments or disagreements in the family and so on. And just do your best to provide a good environment for her at the end of her life. And that's partly your practice as well as encouraging her in her practice. If your mother doesn't have much background in the Dhamma, well, you can take some of these themes but develop them in more general ways. Your mother may not be Buddhist or know how to meditate, so generally encouraging her to recollect good things in her life through conversation, talking about past events as far as you can remember, and you can even ask her about her life, things you don't know about, how she lived in her youth and some of the things she did and some of the good things that happened to her, encouraging her to look back on her life with a sense of appreciation, encouraging her to see is there anything she can be grateful for, the good things that have happened to her in her own life. These all uplift the mind, brighten the mind. You can share some of your own experiences with your mother, the happiness you found in your life so that she feels happy that she brought you into the world. And we're going to feel sad if our mother's dying, but that's not something you need to display too openly or too much, because that will probably bring your mother's heart down. She'll feel sad as well. So save your tears and worries for when you're private, away from your mother perhaps. But when you're with her, encourage her in thinking of good things, remembering the good things in her life and thinking of the good things in the people around her, appreciating the good things she still has in the last days of her life. In whatever way you can, encourage that through conversation, looking through photo albums, just talking about the past and also about the present, the care that she may be getting and her good fortune that's still around, still there for her at the end of her life. And trying to provide a calm, peaceful environment. So try to avoid family disputes and arguments with your mother when she's sick and dying. That's the last thing they want to hear. Try to provide this caring, compassionate environment, peaceful environment, so everyone can be more mindful around mum if she's ill, especially if she's ill in bed and very weak. We'll think it through and discuss, say, with your other family members how to behave around mum to help her most, to be more calm, caring, and avoid things that unnecessarily stress her. And if she does become stressed, well, do put up with that, to be patient and to not react with aversion or your own stress. Try to manage that while you're with her. So there's many things we can do. Even if your mother is dying and unconscious, you can still meditate with her. Sit with her, send your thoughts of kindness to her. There's always something you can do right to the very last breath of your mother's life, and you can encourage her, if she has a background in meditation and Buddhism, to be mindful and recollect good things right to the last moment of her conscious life. There's always something we can do. The last question is, why does practice seem to be always like a struggle? Well, I'd say that's a good sign. If everything was smooth and easy, it might be a sign you're not trying very hard. So a bit of a struggle is a good sign, because our mind is coming from a place of, we say, avijja, unawareness, ignorance of the Dhamma. Now we're trying to train it, educate it to be aware and to understand the Dhamma, and that can be a struggle. Like the first question, we forget ourselves all the time. We lose our mindfulness, we lose our awareness, we lose our understanding of Dhamma, and we get caught into our more unwholesome, unskillful states of mind. Greed, anger, delusion, worry, fear, all the biases and the attachments that come up in the mind, they take our mind away from the Dhamma. And it's a struggle to bring the mind back to the Dhamma, back to the present moment with mindfulness, to recollect Dhamma and see the truth in a situation or an experience we're having. That takes effort, and that effort can be a struggle. So, don't get too discouraged if it does seem like it's always a struggle. As I said, that might be a good sign. And learn how to deal with, the disappointments of a mind that is untrained and not responding to what you're wishing it to be like. You want it to be mindful and it's not. You want to have kindness and compassion when it's full of anger and rage. You want it to be bright when it seems really dull and sleepy or lazy. This is what practice is all about, is learning to deal with these states of mind and these experiences, but to deal with them as Dhamma, with skillfulness, to be patient, to accept that there will be times when your mind drops into despair, disappointment, feelings of failure. That's part of the practice. Any teacher who has really penetrated and realized the Dhamma will have been through all that too, so you're not alone. Whether it's the Buddha, Ajahn Chah, or any other teacher and fellow practitioners, they will all have had struggles, ups and downs, successes and failures. It's part of the practice of training this mind. Ajahn Chah used to say, if you haven't shed a few tears in the course of your practice, you probably haven't tried very hard yet. You haven't really practiced yet. The practice will bring you to the point of frustration, tears of despair, the thought to give up, it's too difficult. These are quite normal, maybe not every day, but from time to time we'll have low points and feel defeated by our own mind, our own attachments, our own stubborn mental defilements. They will definitely defeat us from time to time. That's why the Buddha himself would give quite a lot of encouragement, sometimes just talking about, well, what are the causes for defilements to arise, what do we have to do to abandon them, encouraging us to see that we have to keep developing the right skillful qualities, but also giving stories about himself in his life as a bodhisattva, whether it's his life before his enlightenment or in previous lives as a bodhisattva. One of the most famous and popular stories of the bodhisattva in Thailand is Mahachanaka, when he was lost in the ocean, set adrift in the ocean for many days, struggling, and he couldn't even see the dry land, the shore. He just had to swim on instinct and just keep going, knowing that if he gave up he would drown or become the food of sharks or whatever. He just had to keep swimming until he could see dry land. Once you see dry land, then you've got hope, so then you tend to perk up a bit. Your energy comes up, you try harder, the struggle seems meaningful. But until you see dry land, it can be very dark and kind of hopeless seeming sometimes. So that story of the Buddha's struggle as a bodhisattva is very popular for giving people inspiration to get through the difficulties of life. And there are many modern people in modern life, not just Buddhists, but others who have had their own struggles and talked about them. And so sometimes it's inspiring to hear about how people have dealt with their obstacles and their difficulties in their life, struggled through health issues and problems with other people or their role in whatever they're doing in life. There's plenty of inspiring stories to help give us some motivation and patience to keep going. If you read Ajahn Chah's biography, you hear about his time before he became a teacher, when he was practicing in the forest, and there's many struggles he went through, just learning to be content with the material support he had, which was often very minimal. Poor quality food, no medical attention when he was sick, poor accommodation, exposure to the elements, disease, wild animals, also meeting people who weren't always supportive and friendly. Sometimes people could be a bit aggressive or critical. He went through many struggles in order to become the Ajahn Chah that we all know through the talks and the monastery and so on. And that applies to everyone. These struggles are part of the practice, and you don't have to look for them. As you pointed out, they'll come up quite naturally. Whether it's just training your mind in one meditation session to be mindful, let go of hindrances, to be at peace with whatever's coming up, or whether it's the struggles of your physical struggles of the body, an aging body which has illness or aches and pains and tiredness, the struggle of being with other people, some that you get on well with, some you don't get on well with, but just struggling through that, struggling through earning a living if you have a family, raising a family, protecting, looking after your family. All of it involves struggle. But one thing is, if you keep practicing, you do learn to develop some wisdom and understanding around struggles. And you can see that you've been through struggles before and come through them and maybe even grown from them, learnt from them. So when you meet your fresh or your next struggle, you build on that experience. Say, well, I've been through this kind of thing before. Maybe you've been through worse than this before. So you remind yourself so that you have the right attitude to be patient and just try and learn from that struggle and deal with it correctly, because you've been through similar experiences before and maybe even worse struggles before. That's not to get arrogant or cocky and so, I'm not afraid of struggles, because every struggle will bring its own problems that you have to learn from. But by going through struggles, you gain confidence in the practice. You get to see that a lot of what we call a struggle, excuse me, a lot of what we call a struggle is just our mental activity, the thoughts, the attitudes we have around certain situations. And if you're more aware, you can see, well, there's self-created suffering, aversion, worry, fear, all the different reactions we have to problems, painful situations and so on. We create that in our minds. And just as we can create that suffering or those struggles, well, we can also let them go, end them. And one day, you keep doing that, one day you might reach a point where you've ended all struggles and the mind is free from struggle. It doesn't create suffering out of its experience anymore. When you've fully understood greed, anger and delusion as the cause of suffering, every time they arise you recognize these are to be abandoned, and you understand that clearly all the time, then your mind won't have many more struggles to deal with. It'll be free. But until that point, we have to be very patient, keep bringing up effort, and find inspiration from the Buddha, our teachers, and other people who have also been through struggles, and that will help. So, those are the questions tonight. Some 3 questions for lockdown. I guess lockdown is a sort of struggle, isn't it? Suddenly you can't do things that you plan to do. Suddenly you are confined to your home and a 5-kilometer radius around your home. Well, that's a struggle. But we've been through lockdown before, longer ones than this one, so I'm sure we can also come through this lockdown well. And just see if you can turn it into something good, something useful for yourself, for the people around you. So for tonight, I wish you well, and may the blessings of the Triple Gem guide you, protect you, until we meet again.